I'll get the introductions out the way to make sure that we can fit in 5 reasons that enterprises are adopting no code in half an hour, which was, we've maybe bitten off more than we can chew here, but we're going to find out. So really quick introduction here. I'm Ollie, I'm the community manager at Stacker, and in a former life, I used to do quite a lot of digital transformation in large organizations, working with enterprises and large government organizations. And then I discovered no code and I got really into it. So today's webinar is kind of exploring, I guess, the confluence of those two ideas, those two professional interests of mine. And I'll hand over to my brother in employment, Joseph, to do a very quick introduction to himself.
I mean, what a perfect blending of kind of lives there, Ollie. For myself, I'm Joseph, as Ollie mentioned. I work with Stacker's enterprises to help make sure that they get the most out of the platform, really. So I work deeply with enterprises day in, day out, learning all about kind of their needs, where they're seeing software needs, and how really they're thinking about software development. So that's why I'm here to share a little bit about what I hear about day in, day out from the enterprises we work with here at Stacker.
Nice. We're looking forward to some stories from you. As people are joining, please do say hello in the chat. Tell us where you're joining from and a bit about yourself. If you're developing with no-code tools right now, we'd love to get to know you a bit better. But like I said, we've got a lot to get through. So let's set the scene. Why are we here? This was taken from a Gartner report from, I think it was from last year, actually, but they were saying, so 25% of enterprises were using no-code tools in 2020, and it's going to go up to 70% by 2025, which is, which is just a huge, huge increase. And, you know, beyond that, who knows? But I think it's going to become really just part of the day-to-day life of enterprises very, very soon. So we wanted to get together to talk about why that is. And today there's 5 things that we're going to talk about. I'm not going to read them all out just now because you're going to hear me and Joseph talk about them for a little bit over the next wee while. But there are many more reasons than this, but here are kind of 5 of the things that we hear on a sort of day-to-day basis from actually talking to enterprises about the value they get out of it, out of no code. So first and foremost, and this is a big one for me, empowering non-technical employees. I'm a non-technical person. I never learned to code, but actually I build a huge amount of software, like on a day-to-day basis, and I love it. And no code has really enabled that. And maybe this will sound familiar. In a large organization, you know, you have many departments who use a bunch of internal tools. So let's say the marketing department, their processes change around something, and they need a change to the tool that they use to manage that process. So they talk to the IT team. The IT team says, take a ticket, you know, they wait a few days, a few weeks, maybe months. And then by the time that, well, yeah, maybe that's even optimistic at this point, but by the time they've made those changes to the tool, the process has changed again, and they need to take a ticket and go to the back of the line. And that kind of sucks for everyone involved, you know. So what I love about no code is that those marketing people can now take the systems that they have in place and update the tools they use themselves. So there's no more middle person. There's no IT team who are kind of controlling when those updates get pushed out, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's Ollie, what I hear day in, day out from teams really is that this demand to automate, to digitize their work is just far outstripping the traditional software development capabilities that exist within their businesses, right? Even as SaaS kind of grows and grows and grows, there's still all these standard business services that are not either automated, digitized, or aren't the fit for some of the tools that they're using today. I know here are just 2 of the clients, customers that I've worked with, you know, to speak to TED specifically. They've really been able to replace kind of an age-old system that their team wasn't able to keep up, right? That was a full stack developed internal tool built by their tech team, but when it came to all of those updates to that software as the team continued to evolve the way that they review applications for speaking, it couldn't keep up. They were kind of had translation documents up. This button actually means this today. This status actually means this today, right? And you go through enough revisions and all of a sudden you end up in a world where that doesn't work at all. But by moving to no code, and specifically Airtable and Stacker, they were able to build that themselves as a team, take a hand on that, and really create a tool there with their non-technical team, right? Just to mention, Leonie, the program manager there at TED, mentioned to us they'd have these meetings to look at kind of the platform that they were building. And through the power of no code, we're really able to just move things around, add features immediately there in their meetings, and became a really flexible software tool for them, right? They weren't constrained by this age technology that really wasn't a fit for them. Zapier as well, similar kind of situation. They didn't have the development capacity to build a lot of internal tools. They were all focused on that product that a lot of us use, know, and love every day. I know we use it internally a lot. But they wanted this internal software tool for their accounting team to build an easy employee portal. Didn't have the team bandwidth, but by moving over to no code, the accounting team themselves were able to build that simple login tool, give employees access to their discretionary budgets directly there, without relying on IT development resources. And those are just two of the examples that, come immediately to mind for me.
I love that, like a meeting where, updating the software didn't become a task that someone else needed to do. It was just like, let's just do it right now. Let's just get it done, and I think
it's not
that's
even
awesome.
that ticket situation. It's not even, let me take that ticket away. I'll go back to my desk, work on this, come back to you in a week. No, like, let's do it right here, right now.
Yeah.
It's amazing
Awesome.
success.
Nice. So number 2, creating flexible workflows. And this is like one of my biggest bugbears is that it's 2023 and still sometimes it feels like you have to just buy like an off-the-shelf bit of software to manage your business, and your business is unique. The way you work, your workflows, they are completely, unique to the way you do things. And I guess it kind of annoys me that almost that you have to, previously you had to buy tools that were off the shelf and they were dreamt up for some generic business that, might look a little bit like yours. And what I love about no code is that it lets you create these flexible workflows around what you need. And it's a kind of different philosophy, I guess, instead of buying this sort of bloated bit of tools to say manage your CRM or, a customer portal or something like that. It's very much about building stuff from the ground up, that you can build things, all of your teams having a say in what the product does and how it works together. And I think that's really, really awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the way that I talk about this, Ollie, is like, no code is really a platform for development, right? Whether it be Stacker or any other tool, it's a platform to unlock kind of the powers of those other tools like CRMs. I know you mentioned easy to buy off the shelf, but really hard to customize, to make it your own, to make it match how you really do business. Here's, I spend my day working with enterprises and Gartner, but one of the things that came to light in a conversation with Gartner recently is that 48% of non-IT workers are kind of customizing or building on top of those tools already provided by IT, or even kind of what we like to call shadow technology, shadow application software development, over there in the corner, buying software tools on the side, hoping to patchwork something together. But, working with businesses day in, day out, what I see is kind of one thing that comes to light, or two, let's call it two. One, this need for that platform, right, to connect data from all of their disparate sources, all of those unique software tools that everyone is using. And then to build on top of that, right, to create this all extensive place. Some people call them super apps, multi-purpose platform to tackle all of those needs in one, but really unlocking this power of creating those tools specifically for their needs. I work with one big streaming platform. Their team there has recently started a new kind of directive to help them figure out how they work with either partner studios, different partners to kind of complete some of their work, right? Some of us might call it outsourcing, but really it's about that partnership between those two businesses. But one of the things they realized pretty early on in that process is they're working with a lot of people who they don't know that intimately, who need access to some information, but need it in a really easy to find way, right? They can't onboard people day in and day out to do work for them. So what they needed was this flexible platform that they could make work for a bunch of different needs, right? It wasn't one business unit that was doing this work, it was across the entire organization. And so they really needed that flexible platform to not only solve, again, their needs today, but also their needs in the future as they anticipated continuous change and growth in the software. So really those traditional, let's sit down, let's build this piece of software, what they realized was actually we're just going to be rebuilding kind of the platform that you've already built. So why would we do that internally instead of taking kind of the power that no code is bringing this platform mentality of a place to build, a place that can grow and scale with you as your business kind of continues to evolve, to change, to shift.
There's a metaphor that I was playing with in my head there of like bringing shadow IT into the light, because you're basically empowering your employees to do the same thing, right? Like, you know, build your own stuff, but like actually just tell us about it, you know, like please, like make sure it's like all above board and like, you know, has the right governance and things like that. So yeah, no, I love that. And actually, you know, that probably brings us quite nicely onto our next point.
Oh, it most certainly does. You know, one big thing I hear, keep their data secure. Businesses are constantly trying to keep data secure, whether that be, you know, the spreadsheet saboteur is someone I talk about a lot or hear about a lot as well. You know, I hear about spreadsheets that are floating around in businesses, and all of a sudden, usually it's someone's boss has gone in, made a change, and screwed up the formula that was the formula of all formulas, and like made the entire spreadsheet work right. Um, People are looking for ways to share data, share information, but also lock down those components that are so important, whether that be, you know, Brandy at Zapier, honestly, in that accounting example that I shared a little bit earlier, permissions were that first thing that they were looking for, right? They'd already had all of this information internally as an accounting team and were relying on email-based communications back and forth with employees because they couldn't share that open spreadsheet with everyone. You couldn't see everyone's expenses. That's absolutely mind-boggling, right? That's pretty sensitive information. You want to secure that down, right? And they didn't have the power to do that until kind of looking in the no-code space, seeing how easy it was to keep data secure by using, you know, a couple different tools, permissions, locking things down, making sure that you share information with everyone, but only the information that each of those people needs to see 100%.
For sure. And I feel like I do love that phrase, spreadsheet saboteur. And I feel like we've all like we've probably both been like both the person who's had their spreadsheet sabotaged, and then we've also been the person to sabotage other people's spreadsheets. You know, and just locking stuff down like makes everything work so much smoother. And just to touch on, you know, maybe a slightly more tactical sort of bit of this webinar, in terms of picking a tool, like there are various things that you want to look for, but the important thing for me, I think, is that kind of very granular control, because a lot of tools will give you sort of, you know, a way to sort of give access to a lot of different fields or a lot of different bits of data in one fell swoop. But having CRUD functionality, if you've not come across it, so create, read, update, and delete within that granular data. So you can pick, you know, Jack, who is in sales, should only be able to see this, you know, information over here. And Jill, who is in marketing, should only be able to see this stuff here. And the final point here about user roles, that's just to make life easier. So you don't have to individually decide like Jack and Jill get, you know, this kind of access. You can say the sales team should get this kind of access and the marketing team should get this kind of access. These are all, you know, permission-based tools that are, you know, available in a lot of the more mature no-code tools that are out there, but it's worth looking into, make sure that it has all of these things before you pick one to build with.
Yeah, that's really true. The other thing I keep hearing from businesses lately is moving into that compliance space. You know, no code has matured just enough that people are starting to think about it in that compliance space, right? We used to talk to folks, really individual users and businesses, but now no code has reached that space of IT's in it, you know? We're going through security reviews with folks, and some of the things also to keep in mind are those compliance related things, whether it's GDPR compliance, SOC 2 compliance, some of those security certifications to make sure that not only do you have these tools internally as a business, but also that the platform itself is secure and compliant for all of the other reasons that you might anticipate needing secure and compliance software, secure and compliant software.
100%. I feel like the time frame for this has been so short as well. Like 2 years ago, I'm sure I actually spoke to a large organization in the UK about using a no-code tool, and they actually kind of laughed me and another guy out the room, basically, just due to the lack of compliance around it. And that particular that tool has actually come on so far in the last 2 years, and I think this is just sort of true of the no-code ecosystem, that we are reaching this level of maturity where it's not just scrappy entrepreneurs trying to sort of throw something together to sell to a corporation or something. It's way more mature. That's a great word for it.
Yeah, I mean, Ollie, we have financial service providers, we have big businesses that I would have never dreamed would be using no code tools, but it's so pervasive in both its ease and now kind of getting in that mature space with compliance that it's hard not to reach for, I would say.
100%. And also it's quick, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think that sort of example I gave earlier about, take a ticket and wait like hours, days, weeks, months. I'm sure quite often you'll never see those updates made, right? Like you'll sort of want to think, and it will never get back to you for various reasons. It's tough to build stuff in large organizations, is the truth of it, but I actually read a survey the other day by Statista, which I can share with the room afterwards, where I think it was 95% of people said that low code was faster than traditional development. And I kind of, it's hard to imagine who the 5% disagreeing
I was gonna
are.
say.
Like, I guess like once you start building with it, like you can just see, how quick you can do things. I was talking to a large charity here the other day, and they were looking at buying an off-the-shelf SaaS tool, and I wanted to show them Stacker. Like I was like, this would maybe do what you needed to do, because they just needed, a fairly simple portal to allow their volunteers to log in and check their qualifications, update them, that kind of thing. They were getting, frankly, charged quite a lot for it. And in 30 minutes, I had managed to build, the bones of this application for them, which, I love. And obviously, you wouldn't deploy a 30-minute built application to a large organization. There's a lot more governance, a lot more sort of thought and things, but this was just a kind of showcase of like, here is what you can do when you want to do it. You can do it really, really quickly.
I mean, maybe that is the future, Ollie. 30 minutes in, out, we're done. Got it.
Yeah.
Unlock. I mean, that's a future I could buy into. I mean, I was absolutely me just here with Gartner stats left, right, and center, but in their survey of board of directors, a lot of 40% of them have been moving those digital business transformation budgets directly to business units because they've seen the slow pace of that digitalization in their businesses, right? We have heard about digital transformation for years and years and years, and it's been stuck by nature of kind of the vast amount of work that needs to be done and the limited resources that IT departments have to deploy. So it's moving rather quickly to those individual business units to be able to make those quick, speedy improvements, changes. Just back to that example of Ted earlier, Leonie mentioning how quick and easy it was to do it right in the room. That is the kind of shift that businesses are looking for within software development. Another company we work with, Meow Wolf, they've seen similar changes to the way that they're able to develop software. It's gone from being something that takes a year to get a new tool developed to something where individual teams can sit down and quickly implement those improvements to their software, again, as they just continue to evolve everything that they do. Meow Wolf specifically has routine processes, right? That they look at, you talk about shifts from COVID, right? They're an in-person immersive artistic experience. You kind of go in, it's an in-person event. You go in with large groups of people and experience this immersive world that's created, right? Imagine the shifts that you have to go through in your software to go from zero COVID land to COVID land. Things have changed here, right? And that's the kind of shift that, we all had to go through, but through the power of no code became a lot simpler for teams like those at Meow.
There was a kind of joke around about the time of COVID of like, who drove your digital transformation? Was it your CEO, your CTO, or was it COVID? Which I think, a lot of people, we saw a lot of no code adoption around about then, of like people just very hurriedly trying to get stuff, speedily out there for, sorry, excuse me, to be used. I'm delighted that's the first time I've had to take a cough break on this webinar. It's allergy season here in Scotland. And so we're going to get on to our last and final point, and then we'll have some time for questions. There's a couple coming already, but we should have just a couple of minutes for questions. But our final point, and this one is kind of, we've actually touched on this one quite a lot already, but I think it is an important one to double down on, because this is my most staggering statistic that I've seen about no code. And this came from the Retool survey last year, maybe it's slightly biased because of who their audience are, but I think it was 33% actually was the actual number of developer resources are spent building internal tools, which is just astonishing, and in terms of who are the most highly paid employees within your business, very good chance it's your developers. And this is an anecdote, but I heard from someone about how they had replaced 10 developers within their organization with one person building with no code. Now, that's, there's different ways that you can look at that. For me, that feels more like the work of building software had been spread out to other departments as well. It wasn't just one person building everything. It was like the marketing people felt empowered to build their own software. The operations people felt empowered to do it. But they told me, it was just a huge cost-saving exercise at the end of the day. And those, if you have developers, they can then be redeployed to work on the products that you're working on, or, other things that, perhaps actually frustrate them, less than having to build internal tools for people all day. May have not been what they signed up for. So yeah, I think that's such a huge statistic to me.
Yeah, just last week, Ollie, I was talking to someone who is a new customer of ours, but they're talking about how they were out in the hunt for, they were going to build it full stack. They were looking at those costs, $400,000 to like $1 million, $400,000 to like $1 million is what they were looking at in development costs. But like truly, just by selecting Stacker as a platform, you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars, not even considering those ongoing maintenance costs, right? Even if you look at kind of the most expensive plans we offer in comparison to full stack development costs, you're saving a good chunk of change, and then even if you add up kind of the cost across all of the software tools your team is using, which is something we see at a lot of the enterprises that we work with, that they started with one tool that they were looking to deploy, but then all of a sudden they're, maybe it's a project management tool, but then all of a sudden their CRM has moved over, their portal tool, their HR tool, all of these other tools, because folks find it so easy to use. And then the cost savings just kind of multiply across that, right? Back to Zapier once again, I've seen that they've been saving about a day a week by not responding to emails, by not having to respond to emails, which I would like to take that day a week back.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Respond to email, right?
Yeah.
But like just going from like back and forth with accounting to a simple place you can log in, see that information directly, makes things super easy. Just to throw a little bit more evidence based on the back end of this, another Gartner study with Heathrow Airport. Heathrow has had a big transformation towards no-code tools, but they've looked at it an estimated that they've saved about £2 million in costs by enabling this kind of no code, low code tooling to be deployed within their business units, right? And not insignificant number again.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely huge. Yeah. But I should point out we're not sponsored by Gartner or anything at this point, just Joseph as a huge fan, you know.
Huge fan over here, yeah.
So we actually have a really interesting question that comes in. So I'm going to slightly break the script and go to it because I think it's a really important one. And so someone has asked, how do you balance centralized versus decentralized no-code development? So are there centralized functions you've seen that oversee things across the board and set standards, or, you know, is it or something else? I can go first if you think, because if that's okay. Like I think
go for it.
It's be really interesting to see how this evolves over time. But I've actually seen a few people who have the job title of chief non-technical officer. You know, that they have become the person who oversees no code within their organization. And I love that. So, you know, having someone you know, who is sort of responsible for making sure that everything is connected up properly. And we're going to come on to sort of governance and sort of documentation in a moment. But I don't know, Joseph, what do you think? Have you seen much sort of, you know, centralized no code building, or is it sort of more departmental?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there are two things that I break out there. One, the actual kind of building of software to power the work that you do every day, right? A lot of times, whether it be the largest businesses that we work with or smaller, medium-sized enterprises, we see that happen in business units individually. But one of the big things that we see more and more become centralized is some of those bigger picture pieces of the puzzle, right? Whether that's access to centralized data repositories, right? That big streaming platform I mentioned earlier, they have, you know, their list of titles, their list of everything that is golden, right? That is God of what is available. And there's a lot of teams that need access to that information, right? So centralizing access by having a team that's responsible for how those individual business units access and update that information is something that they've implemented as they've scaled kind of the citizen development no code space within the organization, right? To make sure you still have that single source of truth. There are some truths across a business that everyone can operate on. But from there, you're not stuck in an environment where all of your processes are then controlled by that centralized unit, right? It's more about the empowerment of those individual business units than having a powerful function, an all-knowing function, if that resonates.
For sure, yeah. I think often it can start as like an organic thing within one department, but you know, if they can pitch it correctly and like kind of get people on board, then that stuff spreads so quickly. If it's just saving everyone time and money, you know, and making everything more efficient, then you know, it makes sense to have it centralized. So yeah, we need more chief non-technical officers out there. We've got 1 minute left. My goodness, time flies. So I had a couple of final thoughts on this. So for me, you know, no code isn't going to solve, you know, all of your company ills. Like I think no code does thrive in a culture of people feeling empowered. You know, you have to have an organizational setup where people feel like they can create things and they're not going to get in trouble, you know, and try things out and iterate and all of that stuff. And that stuff is tough to get right within a large organization, you know, some of which are, you know, 200, 300 years old and they're, you know, just sort of beginning to sort of start the digital transformation journey. And I think a huge thing, and no code is, as it matures, this is still quite a sort of immature part of the ecosystem, but things like governance and documentation and sort of reporting, you know, making sure people know when stuff breaks, that's huge. And it's not really a solved problem. So there are ways I've seen people get around it, but I think it's massive and it's something that I'd really love to explore more in the future, for sure. Joseph, any other final remarks from you?
My only thing, you know, if you're curious to learn more about how we work with enterprises at Stacker, if this sounds like you, feel free to reach out. I'm here, Joseph at stackerhq.com, here for any of your questions. Been great to chat with you, Ollie.
Nice to catch up, Joseph. And thank you so much, everyone who has joined. If you have any more questions, yeah, please do send them to us. We're happy to answer them async. lovely to see so many people in the room, some familiar faces as well. Hi, David. Yeah, we'll end it just here, but hopefully we'll see you at the next thing like this.
Cheers.
All right.